If you are an Eagles fan, you already knew that something big was coming after that painful loss to San Francisco in the wild card round. The feeling around the team, inside the locker room and across the fan base, was that changes were inevitable. Philadelphia did not stumble into this decision by accident. The organization understood that the way the season ended exposed deeper problems, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and those issues could not simply be ignored or brushed aside with excuses about injuries or bad luck. The move to part ways with the offensive coordinator was swift, and that alone tells you how clear the internal evaluation must have been. When a team acts quickly, it usually means the decision was already leaning in that direction well before the season officially ended. The head coach took responsibility publicly, emphasizing respect for the coach being let go and highlighting the contributions he made over several years. That message mattered because this was not a firing rooted in personal animosity, but rather a football decision driven by unmet expectations. What stood out the most in the official comments was the acknowledgement that when a team falls short of its goals, accountability has to start at the top. That line was not accidental. It was a signal to the locker room, to the front office, and to the fans that the standard in Philadelphia remains championship or bust. Anything less than competing for a Super Bowl is considered failure, especially when a roster is loaded with high-end talent on both sides of the ball. There is also an interesting layer to how players responded in the immediate aftermath. Several offensive players voiced support for continuity, expressing appreciation for the coordinator and the work he had done. That is not unusual. Players often defend coaches they have relationships with, especially when those coaches have helped them grow. But when the quarterback, the face of the franchise, and the emotional leader of the team chose not to fully endorse bringing him back, that silence spoke volumes. In this league, what a quarterback does not say can be just as telling as what he does say. From a football standpoint, the decision makes sense when you look at the broader context of the season. This was one of the most expensive offenses in the entire league, built with the clear intention of competing for a championship right now. The defense was good enough to carry the team deep into the playoffs, and in many ways it did. All the offense needed to be was competent. It did not need to be revolutionary or historically dominant. It simply needed to execute, adjust, and finish games. And far too often it failed to do that. The loss to San Francisco was the breaking point, but it was not an isolated incident. Over the final stretch of the season, against teams that mattered, Philadelphia consistently struggled to put points on the board. Scoring under 20 points became a pattern, not an anomaly. For a team with this much talent at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, that is unacceptable. You cannot expect to win playoff games in today's National Football League if your offense disappears for long stretches. One of the most frustrating elements of the season was how predictable the offense became after the opening script. Early drives often showed creativity and promise, with clever designs and misdirection that hinted at what this unit could be. But once defenses adjusted, the Eagles rarely had answers. Halftime adjustments were minimal, and the second has become a recurring nightmare. Games that were within reach slipped away because the offense could not sustain drives or generate explosive plays when it mattered most. That lack of in-game feel is what separates good play callers from average ones. The best offensive minds have an instinct for momentum, for knowing when to press an advantage and when to counter what the defense is showing. They understand sequencing, setting up plays not just for the current drive, but for later moments in the game. Philadelphia simply did not have that this season, and the numbers back it up in painful detail. Averaging fewer than 10 points per game in the second half is not a fluke. It is a reflection of systemic issues in preparation, adaptability, and execution. There were games where the offense failed to score at all after halftime, leaving the defense in an impossible position. There were moments when the quarterback barely attempted passes late in games, not because of game script, but because the offense had no rhythm or confidence. This season will be remembered as one of wasted potential. On paper, this should have been one of the most dangerous offenses in football. Instead, it became stale, conservative, and predictable. There was no clear identity. One week it leaned heavily on the run. The next, it tried to spread the field without consistency, and often it relied on situational tactics rather than a true offensive foundation. When the playoffs arrived, there was hope that the team could flip a switch, that talent alone would carry them through. That switch never flipped. Some of that responsibility falls on the head coach as well. Promoting a first-time play caller to run an offense with Super Bowl aspirations is a massive gamble, and it did not pay off. Loyalty can be a strength in leadership, but can also become a weakness when it prevents necessary changes. Waiting too long to address the offensive issues ultimately cost the team a real opportunity in a wide-open championship window. At the same time, it is important to understand that the offensive system itself has worked in the past with the right play callers. This is not a scheme that is fundamentally broken. When Philadelphia had coordinators who could maximize its strengths, the results were undeniable, including deep playoff runs and championship success. That context matters, especially when evaluating the quarterback and the offense as a whole. Despite all the frustration of this past season, the underlying talent remains undeniable. The quarterback once again produced a high number of touchdowns, continuing a streak of strong statistical production. The running back, even in what many considered a down year, still surpassed 1,000 rushing yards. Both top wide receivers cleared the 1,000-yard mark, and the tight end position delivered one of its most productive seasons in recent memory. Those are not the numbers of a hopeless offense. They're the numbers of a unit that lack direction and cohesion. The challenge now is continuity, or rather, the lack of it. This will be yet another new offensive coordinator for the quarterback to adjust to, adding to a long list of different systems and philosophies he has had to learn throughout his career. Consistency matters at this level, especially for quarterbacks, and Philadelphia has not been able to provide that stability for long stretches. Each new coordinator brings a learning curve, new terminology, and new expectations, which can slow development even for experienced players. As the organization looks ahead, the decision to move on is less about assigning blame and more about resetting standards. The Eagles are not rebuilding. They are reloading. They believe they are close, and in many ways they are. But being close is not enough in a city that expects championships. The next hire at offensive coordinator will be one of the most important decisions of the offseason because it will shape not only the identity of the offense, but the trajectory of the entire team moving forward. Looking deeper at the numbers only reinforces why this change became unavoidable. When you finish near the bottom of the league in yards per game and sit in the lower tier in points per game, that tells a very clear story about efficiency and consistency. This was not an offense being held back by a lack of weapons or protection. It was an offense that struggled to create rhythm, struggled to generate explosive plays, and struggled to dictate terms to opposing defenses. Week after week, the same problems showed up, and week after week, there were no meaningful corrections. Third down performance was another area that quietly crippled this team. Sustaining drives is the lifeblood of any offense, especially one that wants to control tempo and protect its defense. Too often, Philadelphia found itself in manageable situations only to come up short because the play design did not stress the defense or create easy answers for the quarterback. Everything felt difficult, contested, and predictable. Defenses knew what was coming, and they played with confidence because the offense rarely made them uncomfortable. The red zone success is often pointed to as a positive, and there is some truth to that. There were moments near the goal line where creativity showed up, and certain designs did take advantage of mismatches. But even that success has to be viewed with context. Relying heavily on short yardage power concepts to mask broader inefficiencies can only take you so far. When a margin for error tightens in playoff football, those cracks become impossible to ignore. One of the most alarming trends was how often the offense vanished after halftime. Adjustments are where coaching truly separates itself in this league. Every team has talent. Every team can script an opening drive. The real test is how you respond when the other side counters your initial plan. Philadelphia consistently failed that test. There were games where the second half felt like a completely different offense, not in a good way, but in a way that suggested confusion and hesitation. There were stretches this season where the quarterback simply did not look comfortable operating within the structure of the offense. That is not an indictment of his ability, but rather an indication that the system was not consistently putting him in positions to succeed. Quarterbacks thrive on clarity. They need answers built into plays, outlets they can trust, and concepts that complement their strengths. Too often, it felt like everything was disjointed, as if the offense was trying to be multiple without mastering any single identity. This lack of identity was something the players themselves acknowledged. When leaders inside the locker room talk about needing a foundation or a home base, that is a telling phrase. It suggests an offense that never truly knew what it wanted to be. Was it a run-first unit built around physicality, or a spread attack designed to exploit space and mismatches? The answer seemed to change from week to week, sometimes from drive to drive. The pressure on the quarterback was compounded by constant changes around him. Over the course of his career, he has had to adapt to an extraordinary number of offensive coordinators and play callers. Each change requires mental adjustment, trust building, and time. While that does not excuse poor execution, it does provide important context. Stability matters, and Philadelphia has struggled to provide it on offense for extended periods. Despite all of this, the outlook is not nearly as bleak as some might suggest. If anything, this job should be one of the most attractive opportunities available for an offensive coordinator. The roster is loaded with proven talent at premium positions. The offensive line remains a strength. The skilled players have already demonstrated they can produce at a high level. This is not a situation where a coordinator would need to rebuild from scratch. The pieces are already there, waiting to be assembled correctly. That is why the next hire is so critical. Philadelphia does not need someone to reinvent football. It needs someone who understands how to marry scheme with personnel, who can build an offense around what his players do best rather than forcing them into rigid concepts. Creativity matters, but so does adaptability. The ability to feel the flow of a game, to sense when a defense is on its heels, and to press that advantage is something this offense desperately lacked. There is also a philosophical question that must be addressed internally. For years, this team has leaned conservative in key moments, opting for safety over aggression. While that approach can work in certain contexts, it can also limit an offense's ceiling. With the talent on this roster, playing not to lose is simply not enough. The Eagles need an offensive voice that is willing to challenge defenses, to embrace calculated risks, and to push the pace when opportunities present themselves. That shift will require buy-in from everyone, including the quarterback and the head coach. Comfort zones may need to be stretched. Pre-snap motion, diverse route combinations, and layered concepts can create advantages, but only if they are fully embraced and executed with conviction. The offense cannot afford to pick and choose creativity based on circumstance. It has to become part of its DNA. Another factor to consider is how quickly the championship window can close in this league. Roster construction, contracts, and injuries all play a role in shaping a team's future. Philadelphia is still positioned to compete at the highest level, but that margin shrinks every year. Wasting another season with an offense that underperforms relative to its talent would be a massive failure of vision. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The Philadelphia Eagles appear to be unstoppable at the moment, and speculation is swirling around one of the most shocking potential moves of the season. According to sources close to the organization and reported by ESPN, Dak Prescott could be on his way to Philadelphia, a development that has sent shockwaves through the NFL landscape. While nothing is officially finalized, the mere hint of Prescott joining the Eagles has ignited feverish discussion among fans, analysts, and rival teams alike. Philadelphia has been on an impressive tear, dominating on both sides of the ball, but questions have lingered about their quarterback situation. Could the addition of Prescott, one of the league's most dynamic and experienced signal callers, give the Eagles the final piece needed to turn them into an unstoppable force? Insiders suggest that the front office has been quietly pursuing this move for weeks, with conversations intensifying behind closed doors as the team evaluates how best to integrate Prescott into their high-powered offense. The potential union of Prescott's veteran leadership with the Eagles' already electric roster has pundits speculating about a dramatic shift in the NFC landscape. Opposing defenses might soon find themselves facing a quarterback who combines poise, arm strength, and a track record of big-game performance. Exactly what the Eagles would need to maintain their momentum. Social media has been ablaze with reactions, from disbelief to excitement, as fans imagine Prescott orchestrating a high-octane attack alongside Philadelphia's explosive receiving core. While the deal remains in the rumor phase, the implications are tantalizing. Could this be the move that cements Philadelphia as the league's premier powerhouse? Or is it simply a masterful piece of speculation designed to rattle competitors? Either way, the mere possibility of Dak Prescott in Eagles green has sparked conversations from coast to coast, reigniting debates about quarterback supremacy and playoff dominance. If this rumor comes to fruition, the NFL may be witnessing the birth of a new dynasty. And it all starts with a quarterback who knows how to win when it matters most. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.